Welcome back, everybody. This is the Reservoir Wolves. We got Mike and Anthony here again. We're talking today about Game of Thrones. This is going to be our season 8 predictions and thoughts video, and we are going to be discussing what we think will be happening in season 8. We just finished watching season 7 again for like the third time recently, so we decided to do this video. So for this video, there's going to be spoilers from books 1 through 5 and the show season 1 through 7. Other than that, I guess we'll just jump right into it. We're gonna divide this by characters, and our first character we're going to tackle today is Jon Snow. So again, so both Anthony and I have read the books. We've seen the show like 100 times. We have tried our best to stay clear from any leaks that have popped out. I haven't seen any leaks. Anthony, you haven't seen any leaks?
No.
Either, right? Right, so Game of Thrones is like our thing. It's like our favorite series, favorite show, favorite story. So we really don't want that to be spoiled at all for us. Unlike, Star Wars, like we're literally looking for every single leak possible because we just don't care anymore. Game of Thrones is, still our baby. So here we go. Jon Snow. I believe Jon Snow will be on the Iron Throne, King of Winterfell, or Warden of the North. I think he'll actually survive the events of Game of Thrones. I believe this makes sense because he was always the least likely to be king and always the least likely to be warden, considering that he's been considered a bastard his whole life. He even went as far as to join the Night's Watch, which forfeited all his rights to own land and to marry and all that, which based on paper is like, okay, that's it. You're not going to be anything. But as we know, in season 6, he became king of the North. And he was even he even has a legitimate claim to the throne. George R. R. Martin, the writer of the books, likes to place those deemed by society as the lowest amongst us, and thrusting them into positions of power and glory in places that they could have never seen themselves. He's done that with Jon. He's done that with multiple other characters. He's done that with Tyrion, Davos, Aria, Bran, and if you've read the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, he's done that with Duncan and Tall. And even Jaime. Jaime was someone who we all hated, and now he's in positions where he can make better decisions. And Jon doesn't want power. He actually actively runs from it, but he's good at it. Like he says in season 7, he doesn't like what he's good at, and he's good at ruling. He's good at fighting. He's good at leading his people. He has what it takes to make the hard decisions and still remain a good person. He has the honor, values, and cold discipline of a Stark, yet the fury and tenacity of a Targaryen. Putting all prophecies aside, he is simply the right person to not only defeat the White Walkers, but to rule Westeros, or the North, and rebuild the world after the Great War. What do you think, Anthony? Do you think he will? What do you think? What are your thoughts on this? I've been going off on this.
I think not just with Jon Snow. I think no matter what, him or Daenerys will die.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of the fact that most likely one of them is gonna die, I agree that Jon Snow will probably be the one that lives.
So you're saying one of them is gonna die, and if that has to happen, it's gonna be Dany.
If we're looking at like what George R. R. Martin has always like set up how the books are gonna end,
yeah,
and then they confirm that the show is gonna end very similar to at least how the books will,
right,
like their tone and stuff. So it's gonna be bittersweet, and we know Game of Thrones is never an easy victory, and at this point, especially when it comes to the show, like there's a lot of main characters, but Jon and Dany are the main characters.
Right.
And in Game of Thrones fashion, like I don't think there's a way that they're gonna both make it out.
He did say, George R. R. Martin did say that the ending of the books will be bittersweet, kind of like how the Lord of the Rings was, I think. But knowing George, it's gonna be more bitter than sweet. Yeah. So definitely, I agree. I think somebody's definitely gonna die, and I agree. It's definitely Jon or Dany. I'm leaning more towards Dany dying. I'm going to cover that a little more, going more into that. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I think possibly that the reason why Jon might end up being the king of Westeros is because it might be like Daenerys' last wishes or something.
That could yeah, so to get more into specifics, how do you think, so let's say Jon survives. Do you think he'll be king of the North? You think he'll be a Stark? You think he'll be a Targaryen?
I think he'll be a Stark.
I hopefully want him. I mean, I definitely want him to be a Stark. I'm Team Stark all the way. Obviously, I like the Targaryens too, but Team Stark. You know, we need some Starks left by the end of the show. I mean, I hope so. I hope. So, like, when they get back from, you know, that pleasure cruise that they're on in season 7 and in season 7, and I hope that they skip. I hope there's not this, you know, awkwardness about, oh my god, you're my aunt shit. I hope they just skip that. You know, we have 6 episodes left. I want, you know, that whole awkward, okay, you're my aunt, whatever, dude, you guys are Targaryens. It's weird. We all know it's weird. We're all still rooting for it.
Well, I think all that is going to be in the first episode.
Yeah, I want maybe like some throwaway lines. Like, I don't want it to be a thing, you know.
Because the thing is, like, every episode is going to be almost 2 hours. Yeah. Apparently. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the first episode is going to be a lot of like getting the politics out of the way. Like, so like with that, the whole like Sansa, like with the North and stuff. I feel like they're going to try to get through that as quick as possible.
Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think that? So let's say you're Jon. I mean, let's say you're Jon. You get back. You're going. Technically, season 7 left off with Jon and Dany going to the North. They had this whole conversation about whether they should go together, how it would look if Dany goes alone on a dragon. It'll look like she's there to conquer. And then Jon's like, oh no, you know, she needs to come with me, so it'll look like that we're together, we're united to defeat the Long Night and the others. So I think that conversation had a lot to do with it. I don't think it was just Jon trying to get on the boat, trying to bang Dany. But the fact that they banged is kind of like overshadows the conversations that happened before. So when they get there, I think they're going to get there, obviously. And I really hope they don't have some bullshit thing where Bran and Sam like kind of hide something from Jon. I hope it's just like, hey, nice to see you. By the way, your father's Rhaegar Targaryen and you're heir to the Iron Throne. You know, so I hope... So once that happens, and let's say you're Jon and you find that out, knowing Jon, he's gonna probably want to like run from it. He probably won't even like, he'll care, but he probably won't even be like, oh my god, he's not gonna be some pompous prick that's like, oh, I'm king, you know. I think he'll still be like, no, I pledged to Dany, and I think something will happen. I think Dany will either like get over her shit, or something will happen where she's like, no, you're a king and I'm queen, blah blah blah. Yeah, but I hope he still stays as a Stark. Like, I hope he takes like his mother's name or something, because I don't want, like, technically there's no male Starks left, and I want the Stark line to go on. I don't care how they do it. I prefer it to be Jon Stark, King of the North, or King of Westeros, whatever. But I still want some Starks in there.
I think he'll acknowledge like his real parents. Yeah, and he'll like respect that, but. Yeah. Just like the conversation he had with Theon about like how family works in season 7, mm-hmm. I think like another reason why they added that is because he's gonna be like just like that. Like, he's like his real father. In the end of the day, was Ned Stark. Like,
he has no reason to see himself as a Targaryen. Like, imagine one day you find out your last name is actually like Fernandez. Like, are you really gonna like care? No, you're raised with your name. And you're raised from your father and your mother, you know? So I don't think he has any reason to be like, oh, okay, Jon, or whatever, now it's Aegon Targaryen. I hope it's just like Aegon Stark. You know, like, I just want it to be a Stark. So, like, technically, I'm thinking that he can legitimize himself, since he'll be king. I don't think there's a precedent for that, legitimizing yourself. But then again, this is the show, and the show's very different. I'm pretty sure in the book it'll be a lot different. He wouldn't need to
legitimize himself because, and it's gonna be different like in the book.
Oh no, yeah,
because right. the Maester annulled the wedding. Mm-hmm. It means that he's not a bastard at all. Right. So like he literally like the moment that gets out.
So then he'll just be Aegon Targaryen.
Like he'll just be known as the next heir. For sure.
But his name would be Aegon Targaryen.
Well, I mean, it's up to him to accept the name, but for sure, like, people see the fact that he is the son of Rhaegar, and
so how could the Starks go on?
That's why I think he's gonna stay with that.
All right, well, we'll see. Anyway, so with regards to the others and Jon, and on the same point of Jon Snow and the others, it may all come down to finding peace between humanity and the others. George has stated that he doesn't want this story to be a typical fantasy story or a typical story. The typical ending for this would be, you know, Jon gets Lightbringer, and for you showrunners or show watchers, and you have read the books, the Lightbringer is a legendary sword that the Azor Ahai, the prince that was promised. So I think those are two different things. Whatever. Used back in the Long Night to defeat the others. So a typical story would be just like that. You know, a legendary hero picks up a legendary sword, fights to the death, and defeats evil. And that's George has made that clear that that's not what's going to happen. You know, and what has Jon done in the last 7 seasons and 5 books? He has acted as like a peacekeeper. He's the one who bridged the gap between the Night's Watch and the Wildlings. Two people who've hated each other for centuries. And in the show, he's done that, and he brought the North together to defeat the Boltons. And he's brought Dany's people with his people. So he's brought Team Dany and Team Jon together. So he's been that guy, and he'll do what it takes to make peace. That's what he wants. So I think there might be some crazy legendary fantasy crap where he has to make peace with the others. And we don't really know what the others want. I'm going to get into that a little later. But there may be some weird... Dany might die, and he might have to marry another.
No.
As weird as that would be.
I don't think that show is going to go...
I don't think the show will do that.
I don't think the show's going to remotely touch anything in that direction.
Yeah, that's good.
I think
that's a valid point.
I think they're... Like, even if it ends up being that, like... The Night King has a good reason to be bad. Yeah. They're going to be bad. Like,
you're absolutely right. And George R. Martin has said that the Night King we see in the show is different from the Night King in the books. And the reason why I broached the whole marriage thing is because there's a Night King version in the book that he may not be the same version that we see in the show, because there might have been 2 different Night Kings in the books as well. There might have been the Night's King and the Night King. Trivial difference. Hold on, but one of them does marry in legend. He does marry a white female, and that's what makes him a White Walker.
Well, now you touch upon that. Mm-hmm. What could happen, and I think is more plausible, is, let's say in the 5th episode, the second episode, like the last episode would be this, which is always known to being like the episode of every Game of Thrones. Daenerys dies, and the way she dies. She becomes a white, just like the old legend that there's a white queen and stuff, and then she can be. You have this whole thing with that's like what the last episode's about. That she's a white on the other side of the white queen, and then it could be like. I don't want to spoil another show. I was about to compare it to.
No, don't spoil any of
that
shows.
But like, I think if anything remotely in that degree would happen, it would be that. She becomes like...
I mean, that's possible. There's also, like, in the episode Beyond the Wall, I think it's called, in the last season, we did the dress she was wearing, like that winter coat thing, did, like, when the moment I saw it did look kind of White Walker-ish, so maybe that was, like, you know, homage to what might happen later. We also haven't seen any characters turn to whites. We've seen side characters, but we haven't seen any major characters turn to white. So I don't know if you can turn into an other and not just an undead zombie. So I don't know if, like, she were to die, especially in the show, I don't know if she'd just become like a zombie, or could she become, you know, sentient other.
That's what I was getting at. Like, I think she will become the queen of the White Walkers. Yeah. And it might not be like... I don't think it's going to be her choice at all. And I think there might even be a dynamic where she still has, like, her conscience, and Jon Snow has to kill her.
We're getting really sci-fi here. But these are the conversations we have to have, because we have been given no information as to, like, how the hierarchy of whites work. Could you, like, as an adult, because they turn the others in the show, they're all called White Walkers, but in the books, the people who are the White Walkers are in charge are called the others, and in the show, the others are made by, you know, the Craster's baby. You know, it gets picked up as a baby and turned into an other. So can you do that to a full-grown adult? Could Dany be turned into, like, not a foot soldier, but, like, a leading member of the others? I mean, we don't know. We don't know the answer to that.
I think in that spectrum, it's the best
way. It's not beyond the possibility, the realm of possibility.
No, I think it's the best. It's in the group of best possibilities, because at the end of the day, if you think about this isn't going to be a normal, like, Game of Thrones season. This isn't like people plotting against each other anymore.
I think we're still gonna have that.
We're gonna still with Cersei, but in the end of the day, with the White Walkers and stuff, this is gonna be like a whole new dynamic. They're not just a normal enemy that, like, it's gonna be on a huge, huge proportion, like huge, almost like Lord of the Rings, like, level.
Yeah, 6 episodes left, 2 hours at most each. I have to disagree with you on one point. I don't think it's gonna be like, you know how you said that the second to last episode is always the big one. I feel like every episode in this one's gonna be like the big one.
But like, no,
obviously that'll be the last one.
Season 7.
Yeah.
Like, every episode was great, but even then they considered that like you can tell like the White Walker episode
is like that.
The whole budget, a lot of the budget went into that episode.
Yeah, thankfully so. All right. So yes, back to Jon Snow. I think it's like Anthony and I have said. I don't think it's gonna be some like cliche big battle. I think there might be like a big twist to it. I think it's all gonna tie down to the origin and motives of the White Walkers and the Night King. So it might end up like in a pact. And there's also like that whole thing about they haven't made it a big deal in the show. I mean, I think they did mention it once, but in the books there's a big deal that there must always be a Stark in Winterfell, and I feel like maybe that may have a part to play in this whatever happens. But just mark my words, I really feel like that's gonna be like a big deal when it comes to like the motives of the Night King, because I do believe the Night King is a Stark. So I do think he has some sort of play.
We're going to talk about that already? Or
not yet. Let's move on. All right, so our next thing is Theon and the Iron Islands. I think Theon will survive Game of Thrones. I think he'll either be king or warden of the Iron Islands. I believe Yara or Asha, however you want to call her, she's Yara in the show. She's Asha in the book, right? Yeah. I think she's going to die. I think she's super fucking dead. I think she's going to die at the hands of Euron, obviously, and will suffer a similar fate to that of the Damper, which is, if you've read the books, and not even the books have come out yet, but George has released some sample chapters of the unreleased Winds of Winter book, one of the chapters is called The Forsaken, and one of the uncles of Theon is named the Damper, and he suffers a brutal... I mean, he hasn't died yet, but he suffers a brutal fate, and we don't know what happens to him. And I think that's what they're gonna do with Euron and Yara. I think Yara is gonna get murked, and I believe Theon who has finally self-actualized, you know, after all the torture he's gone through with Ramsay, and his his coming to moment in season 7 where he finally like beats the shit that Ironborn guy, and he goes into the water and like puts some water in his face. I think that was like symbolic for his like becoming a Greyjoy, but like a good Greyjoy kind of thing, like a rebirth of a kind of thing. And especially the conversation you had with Jon, where Jon's telling him, you know, you're not a Stark, you're not a Greyjoy, you're both. I think he's finally come to his own, and I think the cathartic moment he's going to have is when he has to confront his uncle, who is symbolic of Ramsay. They're both twisted, evil motherfuckers, and I think he's going to finally... He's the one, definitely the one who's going to fight Euron, and I think Yara's going to die. And I think the show's been leading about how, like, it's all for Yara, he's loyal to Yara. They keep pushing this thing about how he has no penis and shit, he's not fit to rule. And George R. Martin, like I said, he loves pushing people who society deems is not fit into positions of power. And even Jamie says it. He says that Tyrion has always been a champion of the downtrodden, and George R. Martin has always been a champion of the downtrodden. So I think that's what he's going to do with Theon. What do you think?
I agree, and it's like similar to what we're talking about with Jon Snow. I feel like George R. Martin tries to go to very, like, when people doubt themselves and they think that they, like, you know, they won't go here. Yeah. So he tries to use that for the unexpected. Like, that's why I think Jon Snow will be king. Mm-hmm. And just like Theon, who, especially in the show, they emphasize where, like, now that he's already been, like, rescued and he's back with the Iron Islands, he wants nothing to do with the throne. Yeah. I think that he's going to have to, like, and it's not going to be like he wants it, but he's got to step up after, like, Yara dies. Yeah. And I think yeah, you're right. And I think they made so that when we were watching season 7 again, I was listening very carefully to what the characters would say. And there's a part there where he's about to fight that Ironborn guy, and the Ironborn guy is like, "No, we're gonna go rape and privilege and I was gonna say privilege." Too much. Plunger, yeah. And Theon stresses it again that that's not us. We made a pact. I think that's foreshadowing how he's going to be. And the reason why... let me finish. I think it's foreshadowing how he's going to be a king and be a different king, or a warden and a different warden than what came before. And in the books, they mentioned that Ned
took Theon from the Iron Islands from his father because he wanted to raise, because he knew he was the heir to the Iron Islands, and he wanted to raise a new type of Ironborn because the Ironborn had been raping and plundering for years, and he wanted to bestow some of the Stark honor and values onto Theon. So when Theon went back to his homeland, he would be different. So I think, like Anthony, like what you were saying, how he at first he was like this cocky motherfucker who like all he wanted to do was like fuck bitches and be king, and that led to his downfall. He became the self-proclaimed Prince of Winterfell, but then he got tortured and everything took it away from him, and even his family turned on him. But now that's the opposite of what he wants. Now it's like George R. R. Martin, lifting him up as king or warden.
I was thinking, I just got the thought now, and I think no one would expect this. What happens if, like, the whole system crumbles, but the way not that Dany wants it? Like, you know how she keeps saying, like, break the wheel? What happens if it ends up being that, like, basically there is no more Iron Throne? The concept of one king ruling everything is gone, and it's kind of like a new system that we have today where, all these kings or whatever, like, they rule their own lands, but they're willing to communicate with each other, like the United Nations, and then if anything happens, they all meet and have to deal with things. And I think with that, it was like the Targaryens might end even.
Well, yeah, I have a section later on just for what I think is gonna happen to the Iron Throne. We can just go into that right now. Actually, I agree. I think something like that will happen. Like, thinking about it, what the fuck does Dany even mean by breaking the wheel? The wheel right now is that there's a ruling body, the Iron Throne, and there are 7 kingdoms that answer to the Iron Throne. That's it. The only thing that's wrong with it is politics. Politics have always been bad, but she's talking about, going to what? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, you're gonna, and Tyrion even broaches the subject. Like, how do we make sure the wheel stays broken? And she hasn't really even said, what does that even mean? Like, what do you mean break the wheel? What I think is gonna happen, I'll just jump into it now. I strongly believe that there may not even be an Iron Throne left by the end of the Game of Thrones, and the 7 kingdoms may go back to being separate sovereign entities, just like before the Targaryens. A lot of showrunners don't know that. I mean, show viewers don't know is that the Targaryens came over after their home country or continent was blown to smithereens. Actually, Targaryens came over, set up on Dragonstone, which is a couple miles off of Westeros. And then their home continent blew up.
Like Pompeii, it's supposed to be like...
Yeah, it's kind of like Pompeii. It just blew up. No one knows why. We're not going to get into it now. And the Targaryens, Aegon was born on Dragonstone. So the Targaryens were there on Dragonstone, kind of like watching what was going on in Westeros for over 100 years. And then Aegon Targaryen, the Conqueror, was born on Dragonstone. He would constantly visit Westeros, and he would go in there. He was even like the equivalent of baptized in Old Town. So what he saw was this 7 kingdoms constantly at war with each other, and then he decided to take it over and build one sovereign state. So what do you have when you don't have that one sovereign state? You have seven other kingdoms ruling each other. But what's the answer then? Because if there's no Iron Throne, then they go back to being what they were, and then they end up fighting each other again. So, like, what is... I'm not a politician. I don't know what the answer is.
So that's what I was saying. Yeah. I think George R. Martin would be cool if they kind of did, like, sort of something like today, but better. Like, so, like, there'll be a mutual agreement that each kingdom is separate, but, like, we're all allies. So at the end of the day, like, we all run our countries, like, our kingdoms separately. Yeah. But, like, we have an agreement that, like, if anything happens, we meet up, discuss things, like the United Nations. And if war breaks out, like, then there'll be, like, let's say like Essos invades, then all the kingdoms will agree to work together to fight against Essos.
So Dany, season 2. And in the books, it happens sort of similar, but not really. Dany has this vision in the House of the Undying where she's walking towards the Iron Throne, and the Iron Throne's covered in snow, the ceiling's falling apart, and everything just looks destroyed. She's about to touch the throne and pulls away at the last second. So I think that's like blatant symbolism for her never getting on the throne. So that to me is just more evidence that A, she may die because if she doesn't go on the Iron Throne, Dany's not the kind of person who will settle for a small little kingdom. And if there's no Iron Throne, they either make it somewhere else, which I doubt, or everything goes back to being the Seven Kingdoms, meaning the North rules the North. I mean, the Starks rule the North. The Baratheons, I guess Gendry will rule the Stormlands. You'll have Tyrion ruling the Western lands, yada, yada, yada. The Targaryens never had land.
I think even Gendry is going to get back with the Stormlands, probably.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, it'll be Baratheon and he'll get the Stormlands. But the Targaryens, but the whole history lesson I went into earlier was was to show that the Targaryens had Dragonstone. That's it. They never ruled anything. They had Valyria, and they weren't even the rulers of that. So they go to Dragonstone, and there's no Iron Throne. There's just 7 kingdoms. They don't own those 7 kingdoms, and I cannot see Dany being like, okay, I'm gonna sit on Dragonstone because no, So that to me is more proof that she's gonna die.
Well, I want to elaborate on exactly that, especially what you were talking about with the House and then dying.
Mm-hmm.
The book does a really good job, but even with the show, if you really, really look at it, right after the whole, she walks into the throne room and the throne room's destroyed and you have winter in it, the next thing she sees is Khal Drogo and her baby. That's why, and if I was really thinking about it, and the order of those scenes in the book and the TV show are done not just randomly. There has to be a reason for that. And people think it's maybe because it's foreshadowing that's her going to the afterlife.
I think you're almost right. I think she sees the throne, and then she sees Khal Drogo's tent, but it's beyond the wall. So
in the book, in the
show, I think she sees I think she goes out to the wall, and then she sees light, and she opens it, and it's Khal Drogo's tent with her
Yeah, but it's still okay.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think it's the same message. I think she's about to get to the throne. She could, and that's what season 7 symbolizes, is that she could have done it, but she went to the wall. In the vision and in the show, she goes to the wall to fight the White Walkers, which I think is going to happen now, and she's going to die, and she's going to be with Khal Drogo or whatever.
I don't think she's I
know, yeah.
Well,
she'll die.
Then again, wait a minute. I mean, maybe you were saying earlier, maybe her relationship with Jon Snow won't go as far as people think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. That's a really good speculation. They already banged, so.
And then maybe she doesn't. Maybe her everyone. I know the one thing I keep hearing is that she's definitely gonna be pregnant, but maybe she never gets that baby too.
Or maybe she dies in childbirth, like John's mom. She's dead. Then he's gonna die. Sorry, guys.
If you want to do it the happiest way that the show will end, well, obviously she'll be on the throne and stuff. But that's why I think it won't happen because. George R. Martin's that's not Game of Thrones. And in fact,
no.
As much as Daenerys has been through, she's had it a lot easier if you really, really look at it than a lot of other characters.
Yeah.
And even in her worst times, she gets out of it way better. She's actually if you look at it like that, a complete opposite of Jon Snow. Yeah. Jon Snow always has the odds against him, and he just gets by most of the time.
Yeah. So yeah, let's just jump into the Dany talk then. So Dany, we think, is gonna die for sure. George has built up this character to be queen of the world. Every other word out of her mouth is, "I was meant to rule the 7 kingdoms, and she will. Where are my dragons? I have an army." Everything is just and Anthony said, she's gone through a lot, but she has had a lot given to her. She, mind you, she's been taught since a child that her father was the king. She's gone through some terrible things. No one's taking that away from her. But the girl did get 3 dragons and every armor in the world, while Jon Snow has literally been stabbed by his own people and been told his whole life that he's a bastard. He has been afforded no rights. This has been a struggle for him, and it's been a struggle for Dany too. But the show started off with her, unfortunately she was getting raped by Khal Drogo, but she ended up falling in love with him, and no one's taking that struggle away from her. But the show started with her getting dragons, and then the Unsullied, and then conquering Astapor, and then Tyrion, and she's gone through a lot, but she's gotten everything.
It's numerous. If you really, 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 really look at it, look, Season 1, she gets the dragons after like her effed up marriage or whatever, and then she basically gets the Dothraki, right?
Yeah.
Then she goes to season 2 to Karth, and then in the end of that, which you think, oh, she's going through some stuff, nothing really happens. She gets a bunch of money, and all the boats she needs to go to basically where the Unsullied are.
Yeah.
She then gets Unsullied. Yeah. Starts taking cities like nothing.
Yeah.
And then look, I will say I'll go on a limb here and say that the show does go further with this. Like in the books, she struggles more.
Yeah.
But then she goes with the whole Marine, and she has like some struggles, but like she basically just like nothing that bad happens to her.
She also she addresses her troubles from a position of power. She has all these badasses around her, and she is in mortal danger, but she also has people like Dario, Jorah, Sir Barristan, Grey Worm all around her. Jon, you know, like Jon was just I think it's one thing that we're trying to get at, that they both had struggled, but in George R. R. Martin fashion, it's kind of like the one you least expect and the one that society has been like no, and then it gets flipped on its face.
Yeah, but like you know, even like beyond Jon, it's like you start comparing to like the secondary characters like Tyrion and Aria. Like they've both almost died. They both have had to like completely shift their plot line and go to like other continents, and though where they end up going there doesn't work out too much too. Like it's like a constant struggle, and it shapes them. And Dany is still like. Or Daenerys is still very similar to, like, she changed a little, but like she's still very similar to how she was like early on.
Yeah.
And like I feel like the first time she really lost something was with season 7 with Tyrion.
Yeah.
Because even with like one of the best examples of how she's handled is with the Dothraki. Like she gets captured in season 6.
Yeah.
And then she just kills the leaders, and then the whole Dothraki army is perfectly cool with that. Like
but I think that plays a role. I think that's just to get the audience and the viewers and the readers thinking, okay, she is going to be queen. And there's a not even a cult following, there's a huge following for Daenerys. Everyone we talk to is always like Team Daenerys, and Daenerys, she's Queen Bee, she's ferocious, she's going to be queen, and I don't even think she should. I think she's great, but in true George R. R. Martin fashion, like that's just too much. That's just like there's too much going for her to be queen. You know?
Yeah, like I'm not saying any of this against her. Like I think it's written by George R. R. Martin because in the end, it's not gonna work out.
Yeah, it's like Ned Stark. Everyone thought Ned Stark was the main character, blah blah blah, and then when he died, you're like, what? You know, I think that's exactly what's gonna happen. I think it's gonna be the final, like. George R. R. Martin moment where everything you think you know just gets flipped up. All right, let's move on. Tyrion. I think Tyrion will end up being either Hand of the King to Jon, or Warden of the West, Casterly Rock, or Warden of the West and owning Casterly Rock. That's been like his dream. Or he may, if we go to the whole Seven Kingdoms route, he may even end up being King of the Westerlands, which I don't think anyone's ever like thought of. I don't think anyone's ever like really like, oh my god, like no one's ever shipping that, but it's a possibility if you end up having Seven Kingdoms again. So as for that conversation that he had with Cersei and that weird look he gave Jon when Jon walked into Dany's room, I think the following could happen, or that can be the following. I think it may be possible that Tyrion told Cersei that her child would be named the heir to Dany's throne. Tyrion kept pushing this whole like, what happens if you die, Dany? Have you sure you can't have kids? Blah blah blah. And then the last time you see Tyrion and Cersei talking, it's him saying, "Oh, you're pregnant," and then blah blah blah, and then the conversation ends, and then Cersei comes out saying, "We're gonna go with you north and fight the White Walkers." It's a very diplomatic move and very much like Tyrion's character. He's definitely the kind of guy who thinks like that. Politically and what people want and try to broach a mutual understanding. I think, I'm not sure if it's in that episode, but he definitely gives Dany a lesson. I think it's with Jon actually, when Jon is like, "Oh, you have dragon glass or dragon stone," and Dany's like, "What the fuck is dragon glass?" And Tyrion's like, "Just give it to him, like take a step forward into having a beneficial relationship with a potential ally, blah, blah. And I think that's a perfect example of how Tyrion thinks. So I think he might have gone behind Dany's back in service for Dany. In the long run, he wants peace, and he wants Cersei to help Dany fight the White Walkers. And he's thinking, okay, how can I do this? Because Jon Snow just fucked up by proclaiming himself to Dany. And that's just kind of, in his character. Whether Dany will like that or not, I can't imagine it will matter once it's revealed that Jon is the true heir to the throne. Because, think about it logistically. He promises Cersei, your child will be named heir to the throne because Dany can't have children, which is honestly weakening Dany's position. So I thought if that's what happened, I think that's really, iffy move, because you're basically telling your enemy that your queen can't have an heir. So your heir will be queen, whatever. I don't think it's going to matter. If Jon finds out he's king, you just made promises for the wrong, heir. If Jon is king, then promises you need to be making are the people who you should be betraying is like Jon. If you betrayed somebody, it's going to be Jon, because Jon isn't the king. So I imagine, Tyrion tells Cersei, okay, your child will be heir, but then a week later you find out that Dany isn't even the heir to the throne. It's actually Jon. And it also won't really matter when Jaime heads north and tells Jon and company that Cersei has no intention of sending forces to fight with the White Walkers. So whatever thing he said to Cersei, I don't think it matters, because once everyone finds out that Cersei wasn't true to her word and she's not sending anybody anything, I think it's just all gonna blow up. I think the only point of that whole look is Dany's gonna find out that Tyrion made some promises behind her back, and the bridge between Dany and Tyrion will grow, just to cause drama. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think it's gonna fall apart, especially with Cersei's mindset, because I do think that Daenerys is gonna get pregnant, and then right there and then now I do think that the way that Daenerys is gonna find out is that Cersei is gonna use that.
Yeah,
Cersei's gonna use it as a weapon and just say
absolutely. People use that in back then, in war all the time. You set out some propaganda. Oh, the queen can't produce an heir, and that's just gonna undermine her position like crazy. And for Tyrion to say, "Oh, your child will be heir," is a huge political move, because you even see that in as early as season 2 when Stannis and Renly meet, and Stannis is like, "Hey, throw down your crown, and I'll even name you my heir until a son is born." So just to show you the power there is in naming heirs. Naming heirs is a huge political tool, and that's definitely within the realm of possibility that Tyrion would have used that.
Now, do you want to talk about Cersei a little more? Or?
Yeah. Let me see if do I have notes on Cersei. No. Let's tackle it.
I think in the course of what's going to happen, for sure, I think the White Walkers are obviously going to invade not that late in the show, and I think the North.
Yeah, the North is
gonna get hit first.
Yeah.
So Winterfell, sadly, is gonna
be fucked again.
Now I think there's gonna be a whole point where, and they I think it would be good if they did it, which is basically there's gonna be a point where they have to siege King's Landing against Cersei. They teased that in season 7. All these things were like, why don't we just go to King's Landing?
Yeah.
It was very prominent, and I do think that Jaime's gonna kill Cersei.
All right, so let's jump into Jaime then. Because I think that broaches a lot of things. Let me see my notes for Jaime. All right, so of all the characters in Game of Thrones, Jaime is the one who is finally caught up with his role in the books. If you've read the books, you know that Jaime has this self-realization in book 4, and he realizes that Cersei's fucked. She's fucked character, fucked person, just crazy. He's finally at that in the show. He's finally the one who's caught up. That scene where he's outside King's Landing, he's leaving, and the snow falls on his arm, that's straight from the books. In the books, the circumstances of which his falling out with Cersei occur are quite different, to say the least. And they also happen way earlier, like I said. We last saw him leaving King's Landing after the words he had with Cersei, where he proclaimed that he gave his word to help Jon and company and to fight the White Walkers. And he said he intended to keep his word. And now we're finally seeing Jaime he's becoming the person he actually wants to be. He's realizing that his past is fucked. Everyone's been calling him a man without honor. He finally wants to be a man of honor, and they've been teasing that in the show since like season 3. So I hope, and I hope the show doesn't dick around with this. I hope he's heading north to do just that. I hope it would be a satisfying arc for him to complete. And he started off as being one of the most despicable characters whom we all hated. And I always thought it would be great if he ended up fighting the White Walkers, especially after the scene where he belittles Jon in episode 1. And he mocks the Night's Watch. Now he wants to be a man of honor, so he wants to do the right thing. However, I do believe he, like Anthony was saying, he will be the one to kill Cersei. And that's why I think we should start jumping into the whole Cersei Jaime thing. So think about this logistically. He's heading north, and you're absolutely right. They have to, like, the show has to head back to to King's Landing, because it's kind of like it's kind of how you can figure out the show. Like, if you know one character is going to do this, then you know the show is going to do this. So we know Jaime has to have more words with Cersei. We know that's not going to end, and we hope, and if we believe he's going north, that means he's going to go north. There's going to be some kind of battle. Like you said, the north is fucked because the north is where the wall is, and the wall just went down. So the north is going to get fucked. I guess they'll retreat. I guess Jon and company will just retreat, and hopefully Jaime would be with him. And then I guess there will be, like you said, a battle at King's Landing. Maybe Jaime will go in there and try and talk some sense into Cersei. Cersei will try to do some Mad King shit, blow everybody up, or try to blow everybody up, and he'll kill her.
I think you nailed it. I think that's what I was thinking. I think she's gonna see that it's a losing war, and that she doesn't. And like she says in season 7, nothing matters besides her and her child. Yeah. So she's gonna be, and it's gonna have a parallel like the Mad King. Yeah. Like, why give these people this?
Let him be the king of ashes. Yeah.
And then I think he's gonna kill her. And then I think
they'll go down together.
That, or I actually think, I do agree with you. I think he might even go really far in the Night's Watch. I think it would be.
I think it would be great.
He might even be like the Lord Commander, and that would be very ironic. Yeah. And then by doing that, it sets up Tyrion being okay, like the only Lannister left. So
2 things there. In season 7, there's a part where Jaime comes back from like getting murked in the Field of Fire episode, or I think it's called the Spoils of War, whatever. The part where the dragons fuck up the Lannister army. He goes back and he's like, "Oh, what is it? The episode? Well, either way, he's saying we're fucked. You know, if we can't beat this war, you know, the people, they have 3 dragons. They have the Unsullied, the Dothraki, blah blah." And Cersei says, "So we surrender and we die, or we fight and we die. I know my choice." So that, I think, is like her perfectly explains her mindset. She would rather fight and die than surrender and die. So if she feels that she's in a corner and she's fucking obsessed with wildfire, she'll definitely blow that shit up. So my second point is that I agree with you. I think it would be really, really cool if he ends up being part of the Night's Watch. I think that would be just like the perfect arc for him, you know, in season, and I've been telling you that since the beginning. Like in episode 1, Game of Thrones, they have this extra scene, because episode 1 in Game of Thrones is very similar to the first few chapters in the book, very similar, like dialogue. It's eerily similar, and one of the only parts that they included is that part where Jaime belittles Jon about the Night's Watch, and I've been telling Anthony ever since that happened, like, yo, it would be sick if this guy ends up coming full circle and ends up, you know, obviously fighting the White Walkers, which is something he mocked, you know, and didn't believe in, and, you know, snarks and grumpkins shit, you know, and then again, and Anthony went so far as saying farther and said it would be awesome if he actually ends up joining the Night's Watch and just literally doing a full circle, and I think that would be amazing. But Cersei's always saying that she came in with Jaime and says roll with Jaime, and she's gonna come out with him. She might have, the meta around that is too strong. I think they might go out together.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely possible, but then it also could be George R. Martin just trying to throw people off with that. But then again, even besides that, that's like there's still the whole he can die against White Walkers too.
Yeah. Jaime's definitely in trouble this season.
No. Really quick, I do think that I don't think Bronn's gonna die. I think the whole especially with the TV show, the whole castle thing. Yeah. And I think he'll even be if we're right with Tyrion, I think he'll be with Tyrion. His castle will be just
Lannisport.
Something with Tyrion, and he'd be all chilling.
Well, Bronn is definitely that kind of character who understands how things work, and he even says that dragons is where we end. You know.
Well, he's definitely one of those characters for sure that easily, Like, that's a cool ending, but easily he could die at the same time. Like, easily.
He survived, 6 seasons more than I thought he would. So, every season I'm like, all right, this is it. This is where we lose Bronn, or this is where we lose Davos. This is where we lose, what's the Wildling guy called? Thormund. That's it. This is it. He's dead. Hold on, before we move on. So, back on Jaime and Cersei. So, in the books... And they skipped it in the show because I think they realized that it would just be too much, or it would just be too obvious. In the books, there is the whole Valakar prophecy that Cersei gets in the Witch's Tent, which is basically, blah blah blah. You will suffer until the Valakar strangles the life out of you. And Valakar is Valyrian for little brother, but like as they say in the show, there's some gender neutral words in Valyria that can mean one sibling, one gender to the other. So the Valakar thing it's very tricky prophecy, and prophecies in Game of Thrones are very tricky regardless. Sometimes they're simple as like, I saw a dragon being born. It's literally some little kid playing with a dragon later on in the show or something. That's an oversimplified example, but that's literally, sometimes the prophecies are literally George R. R. Martin playing with us. But for Cersei, I think it's playing a different role. A bigger role. Now, if she's saying, and if the prophecy is saying little brother, we have to remember that Jaime is her twin, but she was born first. So she always thought the Valakar was Tyrion, and that's kind of the reason why she hates Tyrion, because she thinks that he's gonna be the one to kill her. But Valakar, fan theories have been ablaze in wildfire for years. The Valakar, people have thought that maybe it would be the Hound because he's the little brother. Or maybe it'll be Aria because she's a younger sibling. Or it'll be anyone who's basically a little brother is basically a candidate for the Valakar theory. So that's something I wanted to throw out there before we close the chapter on this. Close the book on this.
So that does happen in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really look at it, the way it is in the show is that they tell the witch tells her the first two parts of the prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, unlike the book, leaves off the part about her brother killing her. I think that was done on purpose because she's gonna say that herself when Jaime's about to kill her. I think she's gonna bring up the prophecy again and say like, I always thought you or Tyrion were gonna kill me. I mean, Tyrion was gonna kill me.
Yeah.
And that's why that could feel her be one of the reasons why she always hated Tyrion.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just added to the fire.
Yeah.
And then it would be a cool thing where it ends up being that it's Jaime there.
So, definitely Cersei's in trouble. Definitely Jaime's in trouble. And to go off of what you're saying, the Valakar thing, and this is like tin cap territory or tin foil territory. There's been crazy rumors about Cersei and the Night King. I used to think that was ridiculous to even suggest that Cersei would like any kind of alliance with the Night King, but we've already seen her and her approach with magic. We saw Qyburn reanimating that Mountain's corpse, and she was just like, okay, that's cool. So and now she's already seen a White Walker. So I always find it really interesting to see how people in the show react to magic and to like any kind of fairy tale kind of thing. So she's kind of not. She believes it. She even says that all the monsters are real, and if she's willing to say I'd rather fight and die, I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility for her to try and do some kind of like alliance with the White Walkers. I mean, I know that sounds very far-fetched, but that would be crazy.
Well, I think that is a very actually like prominent theory with a lot of fans.
Yeah.
And that it goes off the basis that like what we were talking about earlier was that the Night King in the book, like the first one had a queen or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so that's why we're talking. But I think in the show that won't happen with Cersei. I think like everything we've been talking about, but that's why I think like it might happen with Daenerys instead.
Yeah.
But you never know. Maybe it does end up being Cersei. The only reason I think that would get in the way would be her whole plot with like Jaime and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. That's kind of like I was saying before. Like that some things have to happen because of plot. We know that that Jaime has to have a conversation with Cersei before he dies, because the way, just by watching movies and shows, like, you know that the last words they have with each other, there's no way that can be the last words they have with each other, especially with the relationship that they have. So then you know that something again has to happen with Jaime and Cersei. So then you know other things can happen. You know, so if that's gonna happen, how in the hell would she ever have an alliance with the White Walkers? You know, it could happen. There's been harder. There's been plenty of things that have happened in the show that we're just like, nah, but they've happened. Cool.
I think Bran's next.
Let's move on to Bran Stark. All right, so let me do my little bit real quick. So I have no idea what's gonna happen with Bran. I've literally had no idea. This whole time I've just been like, what are they doing to this guy? I honestly have no clue as to what this kid can even do to fight the White Walkers. He has passed where he is in the books, and other than telling Jon his true origins and being an incredible source of information and intelligence, you know, he's a green seer, so he can see in the show. He can literally see anything at any time. I'm not sure what he can actually do against the Night King. They have built him up as such an important piece in that puzzle that I can't imagine nothing will come of it. But I do believe, I don't see what he can actually do other than sending ravens out and be like, the White Walkers are coming, you know? The British are coming. I do believe he'll see Mira again, so that's another thing. I feel like, so we know that much. He will see Mira again, and possibly because he knows Holland Reed may be the only person alive who actually knows about Jon and the events at the Tower of Joy. I think he has to have some kind of conversation with him or something, and I think his chances of surviving Game of Thrones are at 50-50. That's my bit.
All right.
Go ahead.
So I got a couple things to talk about.
Okay, go ahead.
But with Bran, story-wise, what I want for sure is I hope they use the aspect that he is their three-eyed raven. Like the whole flashback thing, they could show a lot. Like I would love that if they showed like the original Long Night, like a scene for that they can tease Brandon the Stark and they can tease his whole Age of Heroes thing, right, for sure. Yeah. And what I've always thought with Bran is that he's the key to defeating the Night King. Like Jon Snow.
Well, they keep saying that.
I think Jon Snow is just right there and Daenerys too. Important, yeah. But I feel, and maybe because I love reading a lot, that I've always considered Bran the Frodo sort of. Like he's gonna do something that like everyone else kind of has to hold off until Bran does something, and it's gonna be something like it has to be something magical. Yeah. Because if you think about it, the Night King any moment can just raise up his hand and like people come back up. So, and I hardly doubt that it's gonna go down in the traditional sense where like Jon Snow kills him in a one-on-one fight. Yeah. Like George R. Martin has actively said that he doesn't like that. Like in the original plotline, Robb and Joffrey were gonna do that apparently. Yeah. And he's like, there's no way in hell Joffrey would go fight in the middle of like a battlefield. Yeah. And I kind of see that there. I don't see I see the Night King obviously fighting, but I just don't see it being as simple as like a sword fight. That's why I think Bran is going to be very key, and it will kind of redeem his story to people that are not his fans. Because I like Bran, but I know that there's people there who are just like, and I get it. Like they went too slow with his story a couple times. I mean, he was even in season 5. Like
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I do. So here's my thing. Here are my points on what you just said. So in season 7. And this could be exactly what you're saying, but I thought it was very telling that they had that whole part in the episode Beyond the Wall where Jorah, Jon, and Beric are like, oh, we're fucked. And then Beric's like, no, we have to kill him. He's the one who turned them all. So that could be, what's it called when you put things in motion to trick your audience? Sidestep, whatever. No, there's a bunch of different names, but yeah. I think that could be the showrunners kind of like trying to trick us that it's going to be that simple. Obviously, like you were saying, and I was saying, Bran, and I do like the parallel you put with Frodo, because in the Lord of the Rings, Frodo is not part of the battle, but he's instrumental. You know, and they have to wait for him to do something.
Like, not to like be a diss to Frodo, but he's like the weakest one. Like he's not like he's just an average person. Like,
right. Yeah, and Bran is certainly that. He's a cripple. So and he has all this power, and that's what George is always doing.
I think I don't think they were trying to like subvert I think the Night King, if he does die,
does have to go down.
Everything. I just don't think it would be like
that simple.
Yeah, like that you can just go up to him and kill him with a sword.
Yeah. So like, what could Bran do? I do like Bran Stark. I always like Bran Stark, especially if you haven't read the books yet. His chapters will be it's kind of like the opposite of the show. You'll love his chapters. His chapters are really, really, they're beautiful. Like the way he describes things, he has visions. The visions are really, really cool. He has visions in season 1 that haven't even been explained yet. He sees through Summer's, like he's the one who really accepts his warging abilities, and the way the chapters are written where he's warging inside Summer, his direwolf, are just badass. Like the way George describes how a direwolf thinks, it's like really, really cool. And his visions, like Anthony said, they definitely could and should and probably will tease the spinoff series, which the spinoff series has been announced will be a Age of Heroes leading up to the Long Night. So there will be White Walkers in that one as well, and it'll probably be the beginning of the White Walkers. So I do think it would be awesome if Bran sees maybe how they defeated them back then, or what happened back then, the origins of them, and we get some really badass visions of like Anthony was saying, Brandon Stark and all that. Go ahead.
I do think, and this will like help us get into our Sansa thing. I do think that the Direwolves, just how they're very they represent the Starks a lot, and that's why I do think if you look at the Direwolves that are left, it's Jon's and Aria's, and that's why I think them two will survive. And I think Bran will definitely die saving everybody somehow. And I do think Sansa is
it would be like really traumatic if like, let's say, so like you said, the White Walkers, they already took down the wall. Their next stop is the north and Winterfell, and so Winterfell might be in trouble. Wouldn't it be tragic as fuck if like, it also kind of fucked up if like Bran like gets left behind in Winterfell and like dies that way, or like he becomes part of like nature, like the Three-Eyed Raven and all that.
Like, it can go the way that you were saying a little earlier, that he finds out how to defeat them, and then he tells Jon, but Bran dies like soon there, like mid-season.
Oh, that would suck, man. I think you're right. I do think the way that the Starks and their direwolves have gone out, they're very like similar, especially in the books. So Sansa loses Lady, and in the books, that's like all she wants to be. She wants to be a proper lady, and when the wolf dies, that symbolizes her innocence dying. Very what's the owl called in Harry Potter? Hedwig. Very Hedwig like. That's supposed to symbolize like Harry's like coming of age. Grey Wind gets murked by arrows, and so does Robb. And those are the only wolves to die in the book. The show's gone the extra mile and kill off Rickon and Shaggy Dog.
Yeah, but there you go. Shaggy Dog died, and then Rickon ended up dying.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, yeah. The symbolism isn't there, but they die. Is your point? Yeah, I get it. It's 100. I think I ship that like 100%. So Summer died. Bran's wolf died, and obviously that's symbolic. So Summer's gone. Winter is here. So he's definitely in trouble. That's why I have him at 50-50. I also have him 50-50 because I really don't know what else he can do other than tell Jon what his purpose is and where he came from and all that. I'm not sure what he can physically do with his powers to help. I just think his thing will be knowledge.
And then something that this is like just me, like because I love the Song of Fire and Ice. Ooh. I think
Song of Fire and Ice.
They should bring the original Three-Eyed Raven back.
Oh yeah, that'd be badass.
Throughout visions and stuff, and then they can reveal that he is Blood Raven, just like in the books and stuff. Yeah. And fan service. No, but like they can also use that.
Oh yeah.
It can be like, because he says that the Three-Eyed Raven lives on, so maybe he sort of helps Bran get put things together.
That'd be really cool.
And because I feel like that was such that actor's great.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's such a huge actor, and he was barely like Bran. I feel like people have lost interest because the fact that season 5 didn't show him, and then season 7 they really, really I think overplayed the whole he doesn't have feelings for anybody.
I didn't like that at all. I really didn't.
He lost the likability a lot, but I'm pretty sure they'll fix that a little in season 8 because I heard that was a common complaint with a lot of people.
I think. So like in season 7, he's kind of like this mindless. You know, he even says it. I remember what it was like to be Bran Stark, but I remember so much now. Like imagine he's literally lived like he basically in the equivalent of his power. He probably feels like he's lived multiple lives and 1,000 of them. You know, and for 1,000 years. You know, he has all this knowledge. So imagine getting all that knowledge. You would probably lose a little bit of yourself too. But like you said, I hope it comes back a little bit because. It's kind of like Bran died, you know, and I want Bran to die, you know.
Yeah, like, I feel like the only way they could have explained it was that maybe it was just a lot to handle
at once.
As a kid.
Yeah, at once.
Because like, they depict like the original Three-Eyed Raven as like still having emotions.
Yeah,
like,
like, that's true. That's true.
He seems human.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so yeah, and the last time we saw him in season 6, he's like getting like basically like a very fast version of training. Like he's like getting all these visions like quick. So maybe. It's just like shock. It's like a shock to his system. So
and then
I hope he comes back a little bit. You know?
They can use that, like the fact that this guy wasn't there to keep training him, like all the having that power to himself was too much, and that's why he's like he feels dead inside, like knowing everything he doesn't know how to handle it.
Red, everything is like left on red with him. All right, let's move on. So Sansa, okay, Sansa is gonna pull some basic ass Sansa bullshit and die. Okay. Seriously, that's all I got for this girl. I don't know how she can pull off any more annoying Sansa-esque shit, but I know she will. She'll cause unnecessary shit for Jon and co. and undermine him at every turn. Sophie Turner, this is like the only thing I've heard on social media about season 8, so if you want to skip ahead, we'll put it down in the video. But she has stated that Season 8 is filled with betrayal. That's the only spoiler I got. But it's kind of telling. Because what has Sansa's role been so far? It's been trauma, act annoying as fuck. That's been her role. Whether you're a Sansa fan or not, you cannot deny that Season 7 was all just her, like, being annoying. Like, what did she actually do to help the cause? She like fed some people and put some leather on some armor and caused some annoying shit with Aria, and that's it. She got Littlefinger out of the way by a miracle. Which, to go back to Bran, they kind of fucked up because they could have had a really cool scene with Bran being like, "Y'all sisters need to chill the fuck out because I can see everything and I can see Littlefinger fucking with y'all minds." But they skipped that. Whatever, it's okay. But Sansa, like she said, Season 8's full of betrayal, so what could that mean? I don't know how more annoying shit that she can do, but she can do it. So, I believe, so, let's bring it back. So, the northern houses in the show are fickle sons of bitches. In the books, it's like the opposite. They're fucking badass, loyal motherfuckers. But in the show, they become these fickle little pieces of shit. So on top of that, and you have Sansa. So Sansa, all of her experiences, as we know, have been fucked up beyond recognition. So she has a very valid reason to be the way she is. No one's taking that away from her. And also look at the people she's learned from. She's learned from Joffrey. She's learned from Ramsay. She's learned from Cersei, and she's learned from Littlefinger. Not exactly the best mentors. So all she knows is betrayal. So. And her direwolf died, like Anthony said, so she's dead for sure. Because I don't think she can sit comfortably with Jon being king and all that. They've already established that she wants power, for better or for worse. So she's dead. So what is left for her to do? It's gonna be the cause trouble.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like she's one of the few characters that they didn't know what to do with because the material's not there. I feel like they've done a good to decent job with everyone else, but with Sansa, I feel like they struggled, and I think they tried to have this whole thing where, like she literally her mindset has been too, like messed up by all these characters, and that even if she has good intentions, she thinks of it as a way like how Cersei would think of it and stuff, and I mean they could like throw away this whole thing, and then in season 8, like, she just will help Jon, I guess, like, sort of plan out things, but I think they'll lead to she's gonna try and mess up things.
Okay, so something just occurred to me. So, there's two possibilities here. I'm trying to get in the mind of George R. Martin and the showrunner. So George R. Martin told the showrunners how it's going to end, but he left a lot of the in between out. So I think that's why we got a lot of the iffy things in season 5, 6, and 7. You know, like the whole rape scene with Ramsay and Sansa. I don't think that was in the book at all.
I don't think Sansa's going to go to the Boltons.
Right. Period. So, but maybe she goes through something traumatic. Whatever. Okay. So let's say, obviously I think their showrunners are kind of like making things up, and I think they're doing a really good job in comparison, because George R. Martin just stopped giving them source material, so they had to keep making George R. Martin like decisions for the show. So I think that's a lot more where we're getting this annoying, power hungry Sansa-ish thing. So let's say she fucks shit up. She gets the northern houses to cause some trauma. Obviously, she's gonna end up dying. That's gonna get resolved, I think. So let's beyond the realm of like her betraying and dying. What are some like good possibilities for this girl? And that's where I used to think, before I started disliking Sansa, I used to think, wow, where could this girl go? So they've teased a couple things, I think. So her whole life, she's always like, oh, I want the Prince Charming. You know, that's why she fell in love with Joffrey. She wanted this like, pretty looking boy, prince. That's why she liked Loras Tyrell. She's always like, that's what she wanted, right? So George R. Martin likes to flip that. He likes to flip those kind of things. And in the books, there's a song called "The Bear and the Maiden Fair," which is pretty much like the opposite of the girl getting with the prince kind of fairy tale Shrek kind of thing. It's kind of like the opposite of that. So I think it would be really interesting if like she ended up getting with someone who's the opposite of like what Joffrey meant to her. So I think it would be cool, and I might be deemed crazy if she ended up with like the Hound or something, or like with maybe even like Theon, like to bridge the bridge.
Yeah, the closest, like the Hound, no,
because he doesn't have a house. That's it.
I do think that maybe Theon or even Gendry, even though I feel like I think Gendry might get Aria. I feel like that's the only age thing that they'll let slide, I think.
The only what?
Like age gap, like pairing. Like they won't put this like Sansa with the Hound because of that, like the age.
Well, in the book they definitely tease it. Like there's no denying that. Like in the book they 100% tease that happening, and George R. Martin has said that he's teased it. He's toyed with it.
I'm cool. No, in the book things will fly at that, but with TV nowadays and stuff.
Oh yeah, like in the show, I don't think so too much either, because they haven't had any scenes in like forever, and the chemistry is not there at all. So it's be weird.
Like the Hound is one of my favorite characters, but we can talk about that in 2 seconds. We'll get it out of the way. I love the guy.
He's dead.
But I definitely think everyone will finally, especially your book readers, will finally get the Clegane Bowl.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be in an open battlefield kind of setting.
Yeah.
But
he's dead.
I think he will win it. Yeah. But I think he'll die right after that. Yeah. Whether like he dies in a later battle, or like he bleeds out.
Yeah.
I think I hate it, but I think he's definitely leaning on the dead side.
He's definitely dead. It's also, you got to think about what can these characters do after Game of Thrones, and if your question, if the answer is hard to come by, then there's a reason for that.
For him, just like I'll give him a little leeway. It would be cool if he because it doesn't fit him, but it would be cool is if he starts the Clegane house, and it's very different. Mm-hmm. But
that'd be cool.
That's too happy ending.
If he joins the Night's Watch, that'd be good too. But him and Tyrion have a moment where he's like, "How come every cunt idea has a cunt Lannister behind it?" And then Tyrion's like, "And a cunt Clegane to help him see it through." So I think it would be really cool if Clegane, like you said, like he goes back to House Clegane and builds it up differently.
So like adding to that, and what we talked about earlier, if everyone ends up having their own like section, whether it's a king or something. Yeah. It would be cool if everyone says that they need like representatives to themselves, and then that'd be cool if Clegane, Podrick would be like take over House Payne. Yeah. And then
So back to what I was saying, I think Cersei. That's how similar they are. If Sansa survives, I ask myself like, what could her role be? So if let's say Jon is king of the North. She's like Dany. She's not going to be comfortable just like sitting there. You know, she wants to be a part of a bigger picture, and she's earned it. Like Sansa is very capable. Like they tried. I don't think they do a good job, but they bring that idea home in season 7, where like she's a capable leader. She's just a little backstabby, but whatever. So I thought I occurred to me that maybe if Theon ends up being Lord of the Iron Islands, maybe they can bridge that with marriage, and they've already teased this whole like platonical relationship between Theon and Sansa, and I think that would be a really cool way to bridge the Stark and Ironborn gap. And obviously Theon is a complete opposite now of what he used to be, which is what the criteria of what I think Sansa should get with. And they obviously respect each other, and they owe a lot to each other. So I think that'd be a really cool,
I think,
poetic ending for the two of them.
Yeah, I think that would be a good way to go on the route if she doesn't go bad. Like, if she starts to help Jon, and then if they don't want to kill her, that would be a good ending, I think, for sure.
Let's move on to the other Stark child, Aria. I have Aria's chances pretty similar to Bran. I have her at 50-50. I do think that because her wolf is still alive, that's a good sign. Excuse me. I could honestly see Jon being the last Stark standing. However, I am leaning more towards her surviving. Unlike Bran, George likes to leave, like I said, the downtrodden as the people who survive. And as I said before, they have also hinted at her living past Game of Thrones with her, what's west of Westeros bit in season 6, I think it was. What's west of Westeros is west. What's west of Westeros? Probably just Essos on the other side, but whatever. I think that was like that's something that they didn't have to include in the show, so I think that's very telling as to like what will happen. I hope she will have another reunion with Nymeria, her direwolf, and we will see the two of them fight at some point, whether it be with against the Lannisters or against the others. I could also see her playing a big role in killing Cersei. I don't know how, because I do think Jaime is the main player in that, but Cersei is on her list, I believe. Or she added Cersei to her list.
Cersei's on her list, but
maybe some kind of role. Maybe even giving Jaime a face or two.
I think for me, I put it at, like I said earlier, I think she's going to survive. So okay. I mean, everyone has a possibility to die, especially in the show. Yeah. So I'll give it like an 85% chance for me that she's going to survive. Mm-hmm. I think, maybe this is me, but I don't think the list plays a bigger deal. Like, I think that list is going to be like a factor that's behind her. Yeah, I agree. And I think especially like in season 8, I think she's going to be less and less of a faceless man, but still have the fighting capability. Yeah. And the reason why I think she's going to survive is because I think she has a lot of possibilities. They can be that she gets with Gendry and she bridges the Baratheon and Stark gap, which they've been wanting, like teasing forever ever since. Or,
you have a son, you have a daughter, I have a son, we'll join our houses. Yeah.
Or she can do what she always does and goes against the norm, and like you were saying, it's like it can end the show with her going off to a new land, and that's it. Like she becomes like a traveler, like and then that's it. Yeah. Open ended, but she's alive.
Yeah, her I guess her chances are pretty good for surviving.
And then with Nymeria, I think they're not gonna lose that. I think they brought Nymeria back on purpose, like just like the books, the whole, and they, like what they show in their show, that Nymeria leading a bunch of wolves, sort of. Yeah. She'll definitely come back and like help Aria for really quick. Like it won't be a big scene because budgets and direwolves don't fit in that show too well, but.
So what do you think about Beric?
Oh, I think Beric's got it.
He's died 6 times already.
I've actually liked him. He was always like one of my favorite characters in the books, even though he was very minor. I like the fact that he hasn't died yet, and I like what they've added with him. But I think he's gonna die. Yeah, I think he's super dead. I think they're just building him up as that character that like the audience will like. Yeah, and then he dies.
All right. What about Gendry? I think we both agree that Gendry might become the last Baratheon.
I think he's going to be legalized and everything.
Legalized or legitimized?
Legitimized. Like the whole hammer and then...
So I just remembered...
90% is right.
Like, to go back to the Hound, to keep beating this dead horse, I just remembered one of, like, the one of the fuels to the fire of that whole Sansa and Hound theory was that back in season 1, when they sentenced Lady to death, Robert says, "Get her a dog. She'll be happy for it." And what do they call the Hound? You know, Clegane. He's their whole thing is dog. So I think maybe that's just George, like, you know, playing with things. Bronn, I think we covered. Yeah, he I wanted to survive. Obviously,
I think 80% chance. I think about all the minor characters, I think he has a better chance of surviving. To be honest with you,
I thought he was dead in that episode.
But I think that like. It's became like a little thing to show that everyone likes the fact that he's like, I just want my castle at this point, and
what about Jorah?
Oh, I think Jorah is gonna go against the norms completely. Like, he is I thought that guy was dead ages ago. Yeah. And he does have a chance to die because he's not the last Mormont. Like. Yeah. And I would see him dying to save. Like Daenerys, I wouldn't doubt if that comes full circle. Yeah. But I think it would also be cool if he ends up being back with the Mormonts, especially that this girl plays such a huge minor character. I always forget her name. Lyanna. Yeah. And I think for sure they're gonna have to have a scene, which I can't wait.
Yeah, we'll talk about that before we close out the reunions. I agree. I think it would fit the pattern of George R. R. Martin and everything we've been saying so far about how the least likely thing, and especially everything that's been built in, said over and over again. He said over and over again that I'm dead to my family. I've lost the right to claim this sword. Blah blah blah. And I think after this I think a lot of what they built in season 7 is letting go of the past. You know, in that whole before they go beyond the wall, they'll set those 7 to 9 characters. You know, Jon and company that go beyond the wall. They all have reasons to hate each other. But then Jon's we're all on the same side. We're all breathing. So I think this whole Battle of the White Walkers is gonna make everyone reassess their perspective, and people who you would have never liked again, you would have never trusted again, you would have never welcomed again. They're gonna have prominent roles, and they they did that a little bit with Jon and Theon. Theon's the only reason why you're alive is because you have Sansa, and then they reconciled that. And I think we're gonna see that a lot, especially with Jorah. So I agree.
I give Jorah.
I give him
flat out 50-50.
Yeah, I give him 51.
Because just as I said, they might do the whole the forced circle thing.
And also we all sentenced him to death the moment he got grayscale. So, and then now he's cured, so it's it's kind of you're gonna bring him back just to kill him kind of thing. But that would also be George R. R. Martin. So, Thormund.
With that one, I want to pair it up with Brienne.
Oh, Brianna fucking Todd.
Now, I think
she's dead.
No. That's what I sort of thought that a little while ago, but no, I think they're actually are gonna both survive.
Who?
Brienne and Thormund. Because they're
fuck.
teasing that, and not only because of that, it's because of the bigger thing. I think the show is slowly starting to get away with the whole wildling things. Mm-hmm. And I think that it would be really cool if Thormund starts a new house in the north and Brienne. Here's part of that. Brienne doesn't really care too much about her family. Her family's nice and all, but especially in the TV show, she barely mentions.
Right. So here's what I have to say to that. 2 things. One is that it's very similar to the Sansa situation, but not really. It's kind of she grew up in the books. She's butt ugly, she's very, very unattractive, and she's very attractive in the show, but they still play it off as she's not attractive. She's very big and she's not very ladylike. She's very unladylike. She's always fighting and going on adventures and stuff, but everyone's always ridiculing her for that. She doesn't like being called milady and shit like that. So for her to end up with someone who likes everything that she is would be very poetic. She this is Thormund who's attracted to everything about her and admires everything about her. And I think it started off as a joke, but I think it makes a lot of sense. 2 is that she has obviously in the books and in the show, she has a run-in with a bear. She has a whole scene in the bear pit with Jaime. And in that same episode, and I think they're singing it in the pit, I'm not sure, but in the book as well, that whole scene is paired with that song the bear and the maiden fair. And that whole thing is about, a maiden getting, I'm not sure getting with a bear, but the symbolism for it's like the opposite of getting with Prince Charming. It's the maiden with a very ugly looking thing. It's kind of like Georgia's saying that something that's pretty isn't always good and something that's ugly isn't always bad. And so that's why George likes to pair opposites. Like someone like the Hound is like this person who's like scarred and he acts rude and ugly, but he's actually a good person that bad things have happened to. And in the books as well, Thormund is called what is he called? Something with bears, like Bearsbane, or like he's called the man who lied with bears.
He's called Giantsbane, but he even his representation and the way he acts, it's very bear-like, like animal-ish. And then one of his things is that he's known for he always talks about it's like
story about how he fucked
bears
the bear.
or
So the symbolism is there. So Brienne has this whole Bear and the Maiden Fair theme going on. And Thormund is known for hooking up with bears, and that's his joke that he throws around. So George R. Martin has definitely teased that. So I think you put up a really good point. I agree with what you're saying. That'd be really good. Davos.
Oh, he's gonna stay alive, and he's gonna be the Hand of Gendry, not Jon.
The Hand of Gendry.
Yeah, I think it's gonna go full circle to that, how he served the Baratheons for ages.
Wow, that's
and
cool.
he already is close friends with Gendry. So he went to go find Gendry in season 7, and I think he's super close to Jon, but Jon will be surrounded by other people.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what we were saying before. It's like if you know what this person's going to do, then you have to compensate for what another person's do. So if you really believe that Tyrion will end up being Jon's hand of the king, and you believe Dany will be dead, then what about Davos? And that's where you can kind of fill that in. Davos can go with
it could even be Jon's insistence. It could, because Gendry doesn't know how to rule, but Davos has experience. So he can be Davos, go with Gendry and teach him everything.
I agree. All right, so before we close out, let's talk real quick about reuniting this.
Well, really, 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 really quick.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 minor characters I think we should talk about just for 2 seconds, and I'll pair them up too. Melisandre and Varys.
Oh my God, yes.
I think just because she dropped the mic, I think they're both dead.
They're both gonna die for sure. How though?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would be cool to see him use a crossbow, because that I don't want to talk about the spoilers, but there's a really cool crossbow scene in the book.
We already said that we're spoiling the books. In the books, he has a scene where he kills somebody with a crossbow, and it's an epic ass scene. But that would be cool.
But I don't know. I would like to see them.
Dude, you know what they can do? They could have him assassinating Qyburn.
Oh, that'd be sick.
He
with a
crossbow. Just the same way. So in the books, one of the last scenes, I think it's in book chapter 5, right? Book 5 is Varys sneaks up on Lord Pycelle and kills him with a Oh no, he kills
he bashes in. He actually has the little.
He kills Kevin Lannister. Or no.
Yeah, Kevin Lannister.
The kids kill Kevin Lannister, but he kills Pycelle with a crossbow.
Other way, Pycelle is so Kevin Lannister walks into his room and Pycelle is dead already.
Right, from a crossbow.
From the little kids, I think. Isn't his head bashed in?
So who does Varys kill the crossbow?
Kevin, because that's how the scene is. I don't know where Kevin gets shot.
That's right.
And it ends up being as Varys, and then Varys actually likes Kevin, but he knows that Kevin is the best hope of fixing the Lannisters, and that can't happen. Yeah. So
you're absolutely right. You're right. My bad.
But I think you have a great scene. I don't know if they'll do it, but it would be awesome if Qyburn tries to trap the Varys because of the fact that Qyburn has taken over the kids. Yeah. But it would be crazy if the kids they still are loyal to Varys. Yeah. And then Varys ends up killing Qyburn.
Those little kids are fucked up. What about Melisandre? How can Melisandre die?
I want them to work together.
What would be poetic? It's not gonna happen. Varys is so against magic. It's not gonna happen. Something poetic. You think Davos would kill her? You think she'd sacrifice herself? She'd die by the White Walkers?
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt they do some magic shit and she dies. She dies with the White Walkers.
That'd be an epic scene.
Fire.
She goes out she goes out in fire. She should die by fire.
Like if she burns it herself to kill a couple things or something.
That would be poetic like justice for her burning Shireen.
And she has 1,000 other people.
She has said that
death by fire is
the purest death. Damn, that's a good one. Reunions. I'm very excited for Jaime and Bran to meet up again. I think that would be a very interesting conversation. No, seriously, I really think that would be a really interesting. I think Bran, he's already past all of like mortal quarrels with this world, so I think he'd be like, it's alright, bro. It had to happen.
Jon Snow with everybody.
Jon Snow with Bran.
No, so wait.
And Aria.
Jon Snow with Bran. Sam, Aria, Ghost, like everybody. Just a nice Winterfell reunion party.
Jorah with Lyanna and the Mormonts. Okay, so who's that Winterfell? Sansa and Tyrion. The Hound and Sansa and Aria.
The Hound and Aria.
Both of them. Jaime and who else would be like a really weird Gendry and Aria. Davos.
Tyrion and Sansa is good.
Yeah, I said that one. Yeah, Sansa and Tyrion. Who else?
I think it's the gist.
Littlefinger and Varys, but Littlefinger's dead. That's one thing. That's the one thing I didn't like. They didn't have one more conversation. Their conversations were always amazing. No,
actually, you know what? You bring up a good point. I would love a scene with Varys and Arya. Like Varys talking to Arya about the fact that Arya is the one that finally killed Littlefinger.
Also, Arya overheard Varys plotting with Maester Lyrio in season 1, and then she told Ned, and Ned didn't believe her. So I think a lot of interesting potential for conversations like that would just be like very satisfying to finally have had.
I think with reunions, I think that's
pretty. I'm sure we're missing something.
Yeah, but I think the best way to another thing we should talk about, and it sucks, but there's gonna be characters that we're not gonna see for sure. I think that like. Oh yeah, we're not gonna see Edmure Tully. Yeah, I think if everyone's expecting like the Tullys to somehow like. I hope we at least get like an mention or something, especially towards the end, whatever how the show ends. I think Dario is gonna stay in Essos. Yeah, I really thought he was gonna come back as like maybe bad. They already confirmed that the Iron Bank people are not gonna have a presence on screen. Like maybe they'll be mentioned. Yeah, they'll be mentioned. There's no reason for them to be mentioned. What about Euron? Real quick before we close it out, what do you think they have? Euron's. Oh, yeah, we said that. Euron's he's the bad guy at this point. Cool. Other than killing Yara, you think he'll pull off any? Because he said, and the actor said that he's worse than Ramsay. Like, what else can he do? Rewatching season 7 for the third time, he fucks up a lot of things like the Sand Snakes. No, but like he wins a lot of the battles and shit. Like it was one of those things that you don't really realize until like he wins every battle. Yeah, like he's But I don't know. I mean, anything like maybe I do know that for sure. Like what we talked about earlier is true. I feel like everyone's gonna go like it's gonna lead to King's Landing. But I don't think Euron is going to be a part of that because I think Theon's first part is what we talked about. Yeah. And I think he's going to kill Euron, and then that gives them enough time to have like the whole North plotline happen, and then Theon will meet up with these people before the siege on King's Landing. So I don't think Euron's going to be part of the big battle with like. Hey, you might be right. All right, guys. Well, that's it. That's it for our Game of Thrones season 8 predictions and discussion. Let us know what you guys think. What do you think is gonna happen with Jon, Dany, Tyrion? Any of your theories. If you guys disagree with us at any point, we'd love to hear it. Anthony and I love talking about Game of Thrones. Like we can keep doing this for another 4 hours and not even feel it. Honestly, Game of Thrones is like our baby. So yeah, let us know what you guys think. We're gonna be definitely doing a lot more Game of Thrones videos. We really want to do some videos where we discuss some like unknown things or not widely discussed things like Targaryen history, Valyria, Stark history, pretty much things that happened before like the major events of Game of Thrones, things that we really want to talk about. We want to do a Dunk and Egg series too. We really wish George would finish that series, but it's not gonna happen. We definitely want to do one to talk about the other shows that they can do for sure. Yeah, we definitely want to do like a prequel conversation, or spin-off conversation, what they can do, what we'd like to see. So what would you guys like to see? What would you guys like? What? So they confirmed the Long Night and Age of Heroes, but how would you guys feel about like a Dunk and Egg series or a Robert's Rebellion series or
I would have never guessed they would go with the Long Night and Age of Heroes. I didn't see that coming at all. So that was a good surprise.
I always thought it would be cool, but I thought they were going to they were going to go very safe.
So how do you guys feel about that? And any other ideas for a future video that you guys want to see us tackle? Just let us know in the comment section. And if you haven't, please like and subscribe. Also follow our Instagram at Reservoir Wolves. And we will see you guys next time. Thanks a lot, guys.